Hi everybody, this is Carmen from On the Floor, and this video is a quick breakdown of how to do a simple side swept sort of cheekbone length bang or fringe. And in this case, both sides of Megan's fringe will have a nice swooping angle away from her face. Grabbing about 1 inch to 1.25 inch section from the very front of her hairline, cutting a relatively shallow angle, and now elevating subsequent sections to what I like to call layer this fringe, removing that corner that you see when we come up and elevate directly out of her head. I'm point cutting about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch off just to soften that corner, and I'm also over directing each subsequent section back to the center and original starting place to create a nice sort of soft push away from her face, and now refining that length right on top of her cheekbone. Letting go the rest of the haircut just to see how things blend in. I like to cut fringes dry because you're basically seeing the hair move and behave as naturally as it does when it's not full of water. I think that's sitting in a really nice length right on top of the cheekbone, and she seems to also, which is great. So now we're going to move on to the other side. You can see this side, she parts it to the left, just barely off center, and so for that reason we've got a little more weight, a little more management weight-wise to deal with, but we're going to go ahead and section off this fringe and deal with the perimeter first, and then we'll manage with the weight in just a minute. So again, looking at her hairline and the natural flow and making sure that that fringe section really follows in line with how her hairline wants to be naturally, and steering away from cutting anything too far back, which I'm sure everyone agrees is a bad idea. So going ahead and grabbing the entire section at once, taking a look at that nice angle of our parting and following along with that. I like to elevate away from the face just a little bit to create a nice sort of soft line, building just a little bit of graduation into the perimeter. Not too crazy, but just to soften a little bit so that it's not a really clunky and heavy one length shape to begin with. Very, very subtle angle. You can see we're not really going for anything that has a real extreme swoop or anything that's too short, because she does like to wear these a little bit on the longer side. And after refining that, basically just starting off with our subsequent sections coming directly out of from where the hair grows, taking off about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch, point cutting just to keep things soft, and then grabbing 2 additional sections and over directing back to our starting place. I know that when you point cut length off, it's a little harder to see your perfect and really visible guide from behind, so it's really important to know how much length you're intending to take off, so that you are staying completely on track and not necessarily relying completely on a clear guide. So I like that length for the most part. Things look a little bit heavy to me because, again, this is the side that she parts to. You can see all that extra weight we're going to go ahead and soften and just break up right off the bat. Being really, really conscious of how deep we're point cutting. When we point cut really shallowly, I'd say anything from, certainly 1/2 inch or less, you're going to start affecting the length. And in this case, I like the length, but it just looks a little heavy, so I'm going a little bit deeper, kind of 1 inch to 1.25 inches in, and really just affecting the weight, not the length. And now we're going to be looking at it completely naturally sitting on her face and making sure that we like how the line looks, making sure it's nice and clean. I'm noticing at this point that that longest bit right in front of her ear, right there, still looks a little bit heavy, so I'm going to go ahead and slice right into that and just make sure that it sits as softly and as lightly as the front, which I'm also looking at this point and just breaking up a little bit more. For the most part, this is, a full and I'd say relatively hardy fringe, nothing that's too piecey looking or too texturized looking, but all of this, these different techniques of weight management are really just to keep things you know, sitting really evenly and looking very sort of balanced and flowy. And taking the rest of her haircut, which we're not doing today, and looking at that new fringe and how it sits with this old shape, these old layers you can see sitting right on top of her ear, making sure that that area and that connection, that those two areas really sit well together. So I'm looking at these old layers and I'm saying, yep, there's a good bit of extra weight in there that if I soften and if I lighten, will not only sort of refresh her haircut, but also give, you know, a really kind of balanced area for the new bangs to really flow into well. And that is definitely the goal. Sometimes I think when clients come in and you know, they're down for a quick, you know, 5-10 minute bang trim and all we do is address the bangs, it really does them a disservice, because you want to make sure obviously that it lives really well with whatever state their haircut's in. So making sure that you look at that all together, see how nicely it all moves together. Really important. So super, that's the lovely Megan. That is me. And those are her new bangs. Excellent. Thanks everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for being a sport. Yeah.